So allowing yourself the time for creativity is by far the biggest superpower you can have as a visionary, as the owner of the company. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Gym Break Cast, where we sit down and talk through all those visionary and integrator ideas that come to us as we go through our normal daily gym break. I'm your host, Zach Coleman, CEO and founder of Creative, a consulting and educational firm that helps large corporations, go through and help them discover and brand themselves through tactics with web development and branding, as well as our smaller yet new shiny agency, Gym Mart, where we help studio owners of, a million or less really develop some marketing strategies that can help them get over to that next level within their studio growth. Today, kind of want to bring up something here. I was just having a call with one of our partners over at Superfit Grow. If you don't know them, you can check them out. They're a Facebook advertisement agency that focuses very heavily on the Facebook marketing side of things, helping teams scale with their trainers. I was having a conversation with them, and we were kind of going through a process or kind of thinking about working together to build them a larger type website for their continued growth and their trajectories as they continue to evolve and make it to the next level and in their growth. They're quite successful. They're doing a great job at helping those boutique studio owners kind of grow their studios. But we were having conversations over their web build, and something that came up as I was kind of going through our process when we work with the larger companies is our UI UX roadmap framework and how odd they were when they kind of took a look at like what we develop before we go through and delve into this larger project. They, of course, would be coming in, going through the processes that we do with our larger agency that focuses on the larger brands, but they have a very similar clientele that I do. And I thought it would be good to talk about this because I kind of noticed something in it. It was something that was really twiddling on my mind as we kind of went through and I started having these conversations. It's something that I haven't been able to wrap my fingers around, especially within the marketing world for what I do and my audience. And it's this concept that we see within the marketing world where it seems to be very sprint oriented. What is sprint oriented? It's the small goals. It's trying to get things done fast. It's trying to get things done quick. And we do. I see a lot of companies, especially under the $1 million mark, that come to us and they're very much like, we need this fast. I had a prospect last week that was like, oh, we have a brand. We sell $1,000 memberships. He came to us and he basically said to us, hey, we don't want to be in the middle. That's the valley of death when it comes to our industry. We want to be high or low. And so we said we went high, but our brand needs to reflect that. We want our brand to be everywhere. And when we were having a discussion, he kind of was like, oh, I'll just go somewhere and have someone create a quick logo for me. He was still in this mindset. And I could tell pretty much with how he was talking and how he was discussing things that he was still holding himself back from making it to that next level with his studio's growth. Because unfortunately, we get caught in this spectrum of wanting things done quick. So, topic of today's episode, we're going to kind of go in and we're going to kind of discuss the difference and the benefits of going fast with certain types of projects, if it be internal operations, if it be marketing, and kind of talk about the benefits of slowing down a bit and starting to train your brain to allow you to have a little bit more time and make that greater impact. Now, the reason I brought up our partner in this is because when we were going over this process, there's something that a lot of people tend to miss when it comes to building whatever they're building, and it's strategy. They go in, they create a task list, and they say, hey, this is what we want to do. Agencies and any business has to do this. We have to create task lists. We give it to our team. We continue to grow. But the funny thing is that when he was looking over this user flow that we created for a previous client, it was really just what is the user experience going to look like on the website? Well, what are we going to intentionally put certain things here, put certain things there, things of that nature. And we do that because, and I was explaining to him, because what ends up happening is we work on this for 2 to 3 hours together. You have an understanding of the flow of what your website, you don't necessarily have to be into the nitty gritty. But then I said, what ends up happening is we save possibly I'm not going to say tens of hundreds of hours, but we could say, depending on how big the build is, could save plethora of hours on both ends of going back and forth, of making changes, of saying, oh, I don't want this. And it's something that I've seen very heavily in today's industry. I'm not saying businesses don't make it. I mean, I was very big and prone on, when I first started my business, very prone on, I was great at delegating. I always thought delegation was the way to go. Then I brought on, started, building my team and building values. And then I saw something else happen. I saw that we started having a lot of meetings and less so execution. And so you have to find that fine line in the middle of between strategy and execution. But spending 3 hours developing something in-house that we were able to go through from a visionary perspective, teach them this is what a user flow looks like, and then work together to make small little pivots and changes on that user flow before we dive into actually developing the website is a good analogy on anything that you develop. It just so happens that marketing tends to get the short end of the stick because people think marketing happens fast or they don't spend any money in it. In reality, isn't that the hardest thing that you're trying to do is grow your leads? I mean, it's people in general, but grow your leads is depending on if you're B2B or B2C. And it's really that process that you're really purchasing. So, what are kind of the benefits here? Let's talk a little bit about how kind of shifting your mindset from a leadership type role can benefit you and or your team as you continue to evolve to that next stage of business. You start prioritizing creativity and well-being of you and your team. Let me give you a timeline of what a crappy website build would look like, or cheap. If you want to go one of those 99-cent, $99 ones or whatever, you're going to spend very little time knowing what's getting developed, how it's getting developed. They're going to spend probably 20, 30 hours of developing all this stuff that's not around your brand, not around your offers, not around what you're looking to achieve. Oh, and then wait, you didn't see any of it because it was a rush and it only took, 2 weeks, a day, whatever it may be. And spending an extra 2 months fixing, changing, improving. And by that time, it's tarnished and you don't even get what you wanted to be doing. You're tired, your brain doesn't work. So allowing yourself the time for creativity is by far the biggest superpower you can have as a visionary, as the owner of the company. So what ends up happening? Well, you spend one meeting, 2 to 3 hours developing this sitemap, developing this user flow, going through why we do what we do or why your team is doing what they do. If they're developing the tasks, if they're developing the flow, the strategy, so to say. And then you kind of go, okay, now we have a roadmap. Now we know exactly what we're going to get. So that 1 month probably ends up turning into a 1 month of efficiency of getting exactly what you want. And you don't have to in what you need because you're learning things from going through that process and how it can benefit you and your audience. And so you're also learning that. So, and the well-being of all that. You're not stressed at night. You're not feeling like you're nitpicking. You don't feel like you have to, go back through and change things constantly. You could say the same thing about developing a content strategy, or onboarding processes for teammates and creating values, having a vision that aligns all that together. So you have that, right? You have your creativity. Creativity is worth more than anything, especially in today's day of AI. And then you have your well-being. You're able to understand and know things go. So next time you develop something in that same category, you have an understanding, you lead by example. Maybe you can hire teammates on to do that. Maybe it's easier when you hire your next, marketing director, whatever, to say, hey, we kind of have an idea of how this is going to flow. We just need to sit down and have a brainstorm session on how we can develop this better. And it slowly, incrementally gets better, right? Fostering, second on this list is, fostering a sustainable workflow. I'm a very big on the word sustainable, as you may know, through some of our offers. But, that sustainable workflow, you can start to balance those urgent deadlines that you have internally with some of your long-term goals. One of the benefits I had, which is talking to them on the phone, is they didn't say, are those prospects that are like, hey, we've budgeted for this. We started to create an idea from our retained earnings. Like, this is what we want to build. We're going to do it in a year because that's part of our vision. We're seeing where the numbers go. We're seeing where this goes. You can look at that as a long-term goal instead of a short-term gratification of, hey, this has to be done in an hour, kind of situation. Burnout from your team. How is your team going to understand the vision, understand how to implement stuff, how to do that? A website, for instance, is as much of an operational machine than it is a marketing machine. Are you going to have teammates go in and work on some stuff? So you have to think about that kind of stuff as you're building all of these things. You start to maintain momentum and the innovation that you're trying to develop. Once you start creating much more of a sustainable pace on what you're developing and you don't try to, reinvent the wheel every 10 minutes, you kind of start to get this creative flow. And by creative flow, I mean, you start to understand when you work best, when your employees work best, the best times that certain things work for you. You start, funny enough, brainstorming new ideas, risk assessment. Maybe you start building this new website, this new brand, for instance, and you're realizing halfway through the project as you're going through this workflow and you're developing it, you're like, aha, I see what, as we start to develop this, my audience isn't going to go there. And it's easier to pivot and change a small goal within the larger goal of the build, right? And I'm only using website builds in this example because of this conversation I had earlier. I thought it was a good idea to have this conversation with everyone because I think down at the end of the day, when we look at the ever-growing changes of everything that we do in the marketplace, I think that we all just get in this mode of hustle, hustle, hustle. We have to beat our competition. I'll be the first to tell you that having a pattern disrupt in the middle of the day, going for a walk, move me away from my integrator time or move away from certain leadership tasks and moving towards other ones helps me drastically. That 15 minutes brings me such positive ROI. Or of course, you're probably like, well, how much ROI? But at the end of the day, me personally, my personal ROI, what I want to do, what I want to evolve, it helps me pass roadblocks that I may not have seen, Burnout of the team is a huge one. When you start going and hustle, hustle, hustle and hiring and telling people they have to do this by this time and this time and this time, you're only setting yourself up for failure. But if you can start to think about the long-term vision and really nail that down, you're going to have teammates that are going to start rooting for you. That's the advocacy that I always talk about. So I'm going to finish this off by kind of going through a story of mine. Tended to get on so many prospect calls, dealing with so many different types of businesses before we started really nailing down and working with Jim Mark, that I see patterns in businesses, the owners, and what they do. And I wasn't faulty to those same patterns. We develop websites as one of our main services for what we do with our clients and our prospects that come into the door. And one of the things that I did when I first started out 9 years ago now, huh? Is we would, I love visual communications. I love that stuff. And so let's just say this, I focused on positioning, really heavily positioning. What did that do for me? Nothing. Did it help a little bit on attracting better type clients? Yes. But I started seeing these other people out there and they were doing different things. I would look at their websites. I'm like, oh, their website's horrible, but they're still making $1, $2, $3, $4 million a year. Because a website is kind of somewhat of a luxury in so many ways. And it's not really needed till a certain time. But I just focused on that. Was that bringing me business? No. Was that getting me stuck in the safe zone? Yes. So I had to look at myself and say, what's holding me back? I was stuck in this security mode. as a business owner. I had trash going on in my head, and that trash was all about like, oh, you need to have a great website to be successful. Do we develop great websites? You think it's contradictory? Yes, we do, but that's only one piece of the pie. And so I had to look at my internal team and how we are growing our team towards our vision. And I had to go, if they can do it, why can't we? We are focusing on search engine optimization so heavily, we are getting inconsistent leads because we didn't understand our time of year. We didn't understand how to build momentum off of it. So we had to say, hey, is our budget allocated effectively? Is what we do going to get clients the same way we get our clients? And thinking about what other types of strategies can we bring in and start focusing on that. So for instance, SEO is still part of our strategy. The door is open now. We've been able to create other strategies to be able to help us start targeting more people. My team, when I first started, I would bring in just any Joe Schmo in, seeing all these big companies, out there thinking I wanted to be just like them. When I was like, there's lots of successful businesses that grow off of their values. Those are the good ones, right? So that's where I took another perspective on branding and started saying, oh, it's not just about the graphics. Those are important, but just not making them look pretty, thinking about them as a logo, but how is this different? How are we different than our clients? How are we different from our competitors? What makes us unique? What makes me unique? And I started to utilize that stuff to help me grow. I expanded my mindset. I started studying different methods that we can use, which funny enough helps out when we bring on clients and we consult. Try new things. It doesn't matter how big you are. Try new things is amazing. So stop getting fearful over it. But I think I'm going to leave it at that for today. I think this was a good cast, going through stuff. But if I were to give you one actionable goal right now to kind of help you in kind of understanding a little bit, let's look at that 80-20 rule. And what is the 80-20 rule? The 80-20 rule is 80% of your profits come from 20% of what you deliver. Look at the 1-2 strategies that you're doing right now, maybe from a marketing side or branding. Which ones are the most effective? How can you enhance or improve those, but give more value to your audience? How can you streamline that and bring that vision into your team to relieve burnout, possibly save some money internally, possibly save some money externally, or 5x whatever you're working on that could be better? This is Zach with another episode of the Gym Break Cast, where we help come up with those visionary ideas that we come up with on our normal daily gym break. I look forward to talking to you in the next one.